Things are heating up in the case of Bruno Guimaraes to Arsenal. Some new insights into our deal involving Christos Solis. And have Man City just signed one of our players? We look to answer this and more in today's video. Welcome to Arsenal Unlocked. Welcome to the Red Vault. So when it comes to the case of Bruno Guimaraes to Arsenal, this has been one that we've been circling for quite some time now as a club. And it looks like the movement is finally starting to happen. With the end of the World Cup, you expect that business is going to pick up shortly. Pre-season is just around the corner, and the Premier League starts not long after that. So we have to start to get our ducks in order. One of the acquisitions it seems like we're targeting, without doubt, is Bruno Guimaraes. Now, this has been a player that we've been linked to for some years at this point. If you actually follow the paper trail, we were interested in him before he even moved to Newcastle. So this is one which you could argue is a long time coming. But we have some updates on transfer activity surrounding the player. A report coming in from Ben Jacobs that Arsenal are accelerating their interest in Bruno Guimaraes and plan to bid again for the player, with an offer expected to go north of £70 million. He also notes that another Premier League club has also made a recent inquiry for the player. Now, it's promising to hear that we're making some type of moves when it comes to actually getting some signings through the door, not named Illan Meslier. And Bruno Guimaraes is without doubt a quality player. But whether or not we can actually get this one done is yet to be seen. We saw with Morgan Rogers that we have a limit in terms of what we're willing to spend, and we're not going to exceed that, unless perhaps the player is exceptional. So on one hand, that makes a lot of sense from a business point of view, and keeping the club in good financial standing. But it's hard not to be disappointed when you see other clubs come in and just slap the money down on the table. Chelsea. Gary Jacob is likewise reporting that Arsenal have been in direct talks with Newcastle to sign Bruno Guimaraes. Arsenal had until now indicated through intermediaries that they would be willing to offer about £60 million. Newcastle are likely to have a decision to make if Arsenal formally offer about £75 million. And so I want to tie this in with another report coming from Gary Jacobs. This summer, Josh Kroenke was briefly involved in informal talks with the Aston Villa owners regarding Morgan Rogers. Villa were unhappy with the approach to negotiations by Arsenal, who were trying to hold informal talks through intermediaries. Arsenal indicated that they would be willing to offer about £80 million, and it is understood that they would have paid just over £100 million, but were not prepared to meet Villa's £120 million valuation, which had increased based on the value of other transfers completed this summer. I think we all know who's being spoken about there. Elliot Anderson to Man City. It seems to have thrown the market into complete flux. Had Arsenal not dragged their feet, they could have wrapped up the deal weeks ago for about £100 million, but perhaps still thought last week that an offer in that range may have been accepted. Yeah, see, this is where I want to tie it back to the Bruno Guimaraes situation, because if we look back at that, here we have that Arsenal have begun direct talks with Newcastle to sign Bruno Guimaraes. Arsenal had until now indicated through intermediaries that they would be willing to offer about £60 million. So we seem to be in this situation again, and I think this is kind of the way that Berta likes to operate in his role, where he likes to keep his cards close to his chest. He doesn't want to put all the information out there. He'll arrange deals with this player and that player, but perhaps there isn't certainty about what it is exactly we're trying to do. If we really want to sign a player, we as a club have a limit that we're not willing to go over. And that in turn seems to have put us in a position, not once, not twice, not thrice, but more than that, where we've lost out on a player because we're not really willing to do what's necessary to get it done over the line. I really don't want to be coming back on this channel in a few days, in a few weeks, when the league started, whatever it may be, and reporting how we've missed out on Bruno Guimaraes because we've not been willing to put the money down. At the same time, I mean, listen, there's two sides to this coin. We probably can't be in the business of saying, you know what, we'll just pay whatever you want. From what I understand, Chelsea said, you want more than Elliot Anderson? No problem. 117 million on the table, no questions asked. I just don't think that's a savvy way to operate. And eventually chickens come home to roost. Eventually, if you keep just throwing money around like that, whether it's through financial regulations or other teams taking advantage of you or just running out of money, I don't think that's a successful plan. Gary Jacob also reports Arsenal have held discussions over midfielders. Alex Scott and Ayoub Boadi, as well as winger Bradley Barcola. Their main target has been Julian Alvarez. It's really reaffirming to hear some solid links to Alvarez because he's a player that I really love and I think really could be transformative for our club. They are set to step up interest in Bruno Guimaraes. Arsenal also remain in talks to sign Ezri Konsa. Konsa's one that I think makes a lot of sense. I mentioned in my previous video how Coyote from Brentford could be a good shout. Really had a good campaign last year in the league. He's young, good player. But I don't think you can go wrong with Konsa either. For sure, it seems like we're signing defenders every single summer, but it makes sense. We've had and sustained a lot of injuries in that position. It's not a position you want to be light in, especially when defense is such a crucial part of how we were able to get to where we are right now. You need to make sure that you have players that are capable of stepping in over 4 different competitions and a very, very long season that's anticipated next year. Now, in regards to Christos Solis, we have a report coming from Gunnerblog that Arsenal were prepared to meet Club Brugge's 34 million price tag for Christos Solis because it matched their assessment of his value. And I think there's something really interesting in that piece of news because it tells us something which we kind of already knew, but gives us an extra layer of confirmation. This is the way that Berta, this is the way that Arsenal operate. We are not willing to pay 117 million pounds for a player that we view to be worth less than that. I mean, I'm sure there are examples and there will be cases where we're willing to maybe spend a little bit more, but we don't really want to establish that precedent of signing players that cost excessive amounts that maybe don't meet our valuation of that player. Declan Rice, we spent 100 million. We were willing to do that deal. There have been reports strongly linking us to Alvarez, who would probably, come in at more than 100 million pounds. Even Bruno Guimaraes, I mean, the money we're talking about isn't changed. The market does require that you put the money down. And I think if push comes to shove, we'll be willing to do that. But I do understand that we do need to work within a framework. We don't want to start throwing money around. It's one of the things that clubs like Chelsea do. And how often do they get it right? Speaking on Andrea Berta and his philosophy, his ethos in his position, Ben Jacobs reports, Andrea Berta likes to spin multiple deals to the point of near fruition and then finally bid. Arsenal took weeks to get to a point of a bid for Morgan Rogers. Chelsea were more decisive. We want you. We'll pay what it takes. Players like that clarity. And I mean, I think you can understand that, right? If you were in a position where you were up for 2 potential jobs, a promotion, maybe between, either within your company or a different company, if there was a stalling process and actually offering you a job, meeting your wage demands, whatever the case may be, you might be inclined to say, okay, I don't feel the love here, and you might want to go elsewhere. Even if that is a massive step down in quality, like Morgan Rogers going to Chelsea. Ben Jacobs goes on to say, Arsenal haggled over Jeremy Monga. That opened the door to join Manchester City. Enzo Maresca knew the player, he called the player, and Man City paid what it takes. It was only 3 to 4 million difference. Arsenal missed out on Monga as well. So I think the fact that this is like a 3 or 4 million pound difference, it kind of indicates this isn't a strictly money situation. It's not just about us being unwilling to spend money, but I think we really do adhere to this kind of logic that if we have a valuation for what we believe a player is worth, we're not going to spend more than that. It's just not going to happen. Now, if we should be more fluid when it comes to how much more we're willing to go above our own valuation, that's a different question. I think time will tell. This summer is definitely one to keep an eye on because as it stands, I mean, the signings of Ilan Melia and Christos Solis, who seems to be coming in very shortly, they don't fill you with wonder, do they? So, last summer was an interesting one. Ultimately, we won the league. We got numbers in that we needed. But yeah, there are question marks over players like Madueke, question marks over players like Gyökeres. Were they really what we needed? I mean, I don't know how many people would be unwilling to move those players on if alternatives were available. Gary Jacob also reports Arsenal are willing to spend big on an elite player, but only if the asking price fits their valuation. And this is what really gives the impression to me that there's a lot of smoke and potential fire around Julian Alvarez, because all reports indicate that this is a player that the club view could be transformative for the way in which we play our football. And if Barcelona are unable to get that deal over the line, I think we'd be willing to pay the money, especially when we of course know that Berta has a relationship with Atletico Madrid. He was there as their director of football for many years, so that's definitely one to watch on the Alvarez front. I want to give a bit more news your way from Hand of Arsenal. He highlights that Newcastle remain firm on their valuation of Bruno, 80 to 85 million minimum. It's another one where I can see this kind of ending up like the Morgan Rogers situation. There's a lot of parallels there. We've gone through intermediaries. I understand that's how Berta probably operates. The club has a valuation. Aston Villa had a valuation of Rogers. Newcastle have one of Bruno Guimaraes. There's another team that seems to be circling, as was previously reported. And we're just going to be unable to get it done. I'm worried about that being the case, because the season can start and we can be left short or not getting what we really needed. We don't want to be in a position like that, because the only option when you get towards the end of the transfer market and you haven't filled all your positions is that you become desperate. And if push comes to shove, I don't know if we would even cash in on that desperation and pay over the odds. I think we might not pay anything or go for a player that we don't really want. We've seen that kind of thing happen in the past. That's why we ended up with Raheem Sterling on our wing for a season. You also reported Martinelli is for sale. I mean, I think that's kind of, the writing's been on the wall with that one, but it's nice to get extra confirmation. I mean, it makes sense, right? If we're looking for someone in the left wing position, Trossard goes out, Solis comes in. It's relatively like for like, even though replacing Trossard's clutch moments is not going to be an easy job for Solis. And then, Martinelli probably needs to make way for us to bring in another left winger. He also reports that Arsenal were told 80 to 100 million gets it done for Morgan during May or June. This was relayed to Berta via agents. The Anderson deal changed Villa's valuation completely. This has really mucked up the entire market. But you know what the thing is? Markets change, situations change. I mean, Arteta's spoken about this before, how we have to be aware about, shifts in the market and opportunities. Well, opportunities in the market is one thing, but being aware of the shifts that can occur in the market is something else. I understand you had a valuation for Morgan Rogers, but if you don't appreciate that the market has now shifted because of Anderson, and that's just a reality we're dealing in, I don't know what to tell you. As fans, I think sometimes we look at numbers like 80 to 100 million and we say it's too much, but I can't emphasize this enough. It's really dictated by what the market says. It's supply and demand. If that's what teams are paying for a player, that's just what you're going to have to do. Unless you say, I'm not shopping within the Premier League. If you want to go elsewhere, I mean, there'll probably still be a Premier League tax where those teams in leagues abroad will say, we know you have money, but they probably will be a bit more reasonable. Pick your poison. So thereafter, Arsenal verbally offered 80 million. They were willing to go up to 100 million max, but the valuation had changed because of the Anderson and Tonali deals, had dictated the market by this point, exactly what I'm saying. Morgan and his family were fully set on Arsenal. Face-to-face meeting with Mikel, now reported via major journalists too. So yeah, I mean, there you have it. We had a meeting with Morgan Rogers. Him and his family, it's reported, were interested in coming to Arsenal. I mean, Premier League champions, and instead, he's opted to go to mid-table Chelsea. Any reports that you hear coming out about the player wanted to go to Chelsea, etc., I think that's saving face. I really do. I think that's just something that you say because how would it look to, you sign for a club and then it's like, well, I actually wanted to go here, but it didn't work out. And maybe it's the case that he felt a bit more love from Chelsea and the way that they negotiated, and they were clear that we're going to pay what we need to pay to get you in. There was a bit more clarity over how he would fit into the team tactically. But at the end of the day, if this really was Arteta's top target, or one of his top targets for the summer, it's kind of crazy we just didn't get it done. This is coming from David Ornstein. Manchester City have reached an agreement to sign Michel Nduka, 16 years old. Arsenal had offered Nduka a highly competitive long-term contract to stay at the club, but the player turned it down. Listen, swings and roundabouts. There have been instances where we've been able to secure a player over our rivals, and there have been instances where they've gone the other way. It happens, but it's another example of where we just couldn't quite get it done to either secure a player remaining at the club or being able to sign a player to come into the club. I wouldn't quite put it on the level of worrying, but it is what it is. It's never nice when your rivals, you know, take one of your players. So yeah, we'll see how that pans out. On to some brighter news, and it has now been reported that we have signed Elijah Upson, 18 years old, from Tottenham. So, just like I was saying, how it's never nice when your rivals take one of your players. Well, listen, Tottenham are well versed in that happening. Elijah, of course, the son of Matt Upson, who played for us, played for West Ham, is still very much in the game as a pundit, a commentator, and yeah, welcome to the club, Elijah, and let's hope that you can have some career for yourself here. Lyle Thomas of Sky Sports News is reporting that Alex Scott has turned down a new contract at Bournemouth amid strong interest from Arsenal, Chelsea, and Manchester United. Sky Sports News understands. It's believed that the player has indicated that he is not currently willing to agree new terms. I think this might be one where we have a shortlist. Bruno Guimaraes seems to be top of that shortlist, but then perhaps there are players that are also in consideration. Buadi, established links with him. Alex Scott is another one. And like I always say, look, it really is swings and roundabouts. It's always the case that we end up signing a player or two that we didn't quite expect. Sometimes we have to pivot to an alternative. It might be going from a Mudryk to a Trossard. We're just going to have to wait and see how things develop. But as things develop, we'll make sure to keep you in the know. Make sure to subscribe. Let me know who you want to see come into the club. And that's one more for the vault.